Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 193. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed and celebrated comic creator of Dog Eaters, Malcolm Wong.
Thank you very much,
Malcolm.
Barney.
How you doing?
Great.
Good. We're talking straight from you're in Tokyo right now, correct?
Right.
Wow. Okay. So we are. And what time is it over there now?
It's now 8:24 in the morning.
Okay, all right. So that's 13 hours. So there's a 13-hour difference then from where we are.
And it's tomorrow from where you are.
That's right. So you're talking to us from the future.
Yes, time travel.
Right. That's pretty fun. Yeah. So everything's okay tomorrow at 8:30 then?
Here, anyways. It's a little bit rainy, but it's fine.
And it was really great. We connected through Hades, who is part of ASAP Imagination,
right?
And you're connected to that group with your book that's called, as we said, Dog Eaters. And yeah. I gotta say, looking through this, and I am fortunate enough to check out also the issue number 1 of Dog Eaters that came out a couple of years ago, correct?
Oh, more than that, because initially this story was a screenplay, and it won 3 awards at the Screenwriting Expo 5 in LA. We're talking 2008, 2006
wow.
even. And so one of the awards was like adaptation of the screenplay into a comic, a 6-issue comic to be bound into a graphic novel, which turned into a 200-page full-color graphic novel.
Wow.
And so, the other awards was Best Action Adventure, and then I had a management award too with Kersey Management as well. And so the Dable brothers were very prominent in the early 2000s for the adaptation of George R.R. Martin's prequel to Game of Thrones called The Hedge Knight. And through that connection, I mean, they had tried to do their own original material and went through, several publishing iterations before they hit upon this. And then once they hit, they were doing at that time, all the hot fantasy writers, adaptations. And, it sounds really great and all that kind of thing. And they had access to artists. And so I auditioned a few artists to see, what they would come up with, and came up with Guillermo Angel, who is a Chilean, born in La Serena and working out of Santiago, which is further south.
Okay.
Chile, which is South America, of course.
Yeah.
And he did 10 pages of pencils. And I've been, at that time, there's no social media, so it's all message boards.
Right.
And I was getting a little bit concerned because there were people writing saying that creators were not being paid, artists were not being paid. And so I told them, invoice them and see what happens.
Right.
So he invoiced for 10 pages of pencils. It's pencils, inks, colors, and then you got to do lettering, right? So this is the very first step of, after the script has been adapted, of course, of the artwork. And nothing, again, invoice again, I follow up, my manager follows up, nothing. So I took on the production. So that's why I'm the writer, creator, producer for this particular story.
Right. So talk to us a bit about Dog Eaters. So what's the concept? What's the storyline for it?
Well, mankind failed to transcend the petroleum age. 175 years after the die-off, the Black Dog clan is making its way down the trade route between the casino cities of the American Southwest to establish their own city on the Gulf. And so 175 years after the die-off, there's been this, tremendous chaos, upheaval. Our way of life, Western civilization and culture is, except for the casino cities, mistake. But it's 175 years. It's quite a long time, actually, when you think about it. We're talking like, it'd be like the 1800s, right? If we went back. So we're talking about that distance in time. And so basically, they're coming out of the wild, wild west again, and it's still the remnants of this kind of the roaches, who are basically the villains, the bandits, the criminals. They're from maximum security stock, basically bred from maximum security stock. The prisons, of course, very nice walls, very fortified and safe places if you're inside. You just have to worry about the people inside, but they interbreed to become these kind of creatures, as you see. Humanoid,
Okay.
but a little bit more violent.
And so, and who do we follow through through the storyline with the main character that
The
the
main
audience is
character
introduced to?
is the one on the lower left panel there. Is a character called Bevan, who is ambushed on the first couple pages of issue 1, and the Black Dog Clan comes across this ambush as it's happening, and they rescue him.
And where did your inspiration come from for the storyline?
Well, I started writing the screenplay at the time. It was Lindsay Lohan and Paris Hilton, and just starting. This is all early 2000s, so anticipating what's happening now, which is like 10 times as more. Like, I mean, you can kind of see the end. China's like making moves around Taiwan right now, like yesterday. So I mean, you got Ukraine, you got all this stuff happening, and so just basically the mindset of Americans at the time was really getting, this is before the Kardashians, everything is getting into this kind of weird obsession, replacing, idols are called, our idols are called idols for a reason, and replacing, religion, except for, the right to life people, which is very religious, of course. But, this kind of worship of, and sort of this focus on really the wrong things in culture. And so just seeing how that extrapolating into how that would turn out is where I just thought of this. I mean, it's also, it's not that much different from Mad Max. Of course, at that time, Mad Max had been out of circulation for 20 years almost.
Right.
And so, and then you have Fury Road that came out, and I think they're making another one right now too. But I mean, it's the same feeling as that. The center's not holding on what's going on right now. There's just, you've got, this economic imbalance between the haves and the have-nots. You've got climate, of course, which is always changing anyway. That may not be a big change. Climate is always changing regardless, but it's changing fast, because of what we're doing. And then just the exploitation of resources in general, and all these things just sort of adding up and snowballing. And, we've got, starting in 2016, this polarization among people. I mean, there was a article, well, was it, one of the, I think it was Illinois, or some representative, congresswoman, was killed in a car accident. And, the news was on, I think, the New York Post or something. And then you see the comments, and before you know it, people are calling each other names, and, and worse,
Right.
And you just see that no matter what you can start with an ordinary conversation, before you know it, you're trying to kill each other. And this is this is what happens. So we have the die off. It's not specified what it is, although it is alluded to in some conversation. Like I think Tommy, who is the brother, is because Bevan is actually, his mission is, he's going south. He's from the north, and he's going south to find the lost technology of the Western civilization, and to bring back, to bring the world back. And then he's saying, "You think those guys are smart?" It's like they want to tame Tommy because he's just into being, in the wild, wild west, and civilization so great. That's what has destroyed this world, is exactly that technology. So we do allude to that, but we don't get the specifics. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because you do bring up the point of saying, comparing it to Mad Max, but there is a fantasy element to the story as well, isn't there?
There's a bit of a fantasy, and there's also a bit of a family element as well, because it's a clan, and there's family dynamics, as between the patriarch, the father, the matriarch, the mother, and the entitled children. Yes.
So there's also some sense of, as you say, like family drama involved in it, almost to the sense of the Machiavellian politics of stuff. Is that's insinuated in that as well then?
Well, I mean, not as complicated as Machiavelli, of course. It's just a family dynamic. It's like who has the patriarch has, the father has, he's the chief, he's the leader. So, but he has, he does some questionable things, and he alienates his daughter, and so and meanwhile they're being attacked from the outside. So it's kind of like that kind of internal external conflicts going on at the same time.
Right. So let me ask you this. I'm very curious about it. How did this story, what was the seed of it? Was it based off of, as you kind of were talking about earlier, you basically had a thought that you wanted to explore of like some, like a futurism thought?
And everything breaks down. And then when everything breaks down, there's so many weapons on a spectrum from edged weapons all the way up to nuclear war. And there's tons of them. We've got weapons like, tons. So all it takes is a couple people, and then you've got the die-off. And that's where I started. So that's the nucleus. That's the seed. It's a warning in a way, but it's also a story,
Right. So do you have, in a way, do you kind of follow the hero's journey as well through the main character?
I mean, hero's journey, it's a formula that has been, that is very necessary to understand and to know, as well as other story, of course, the original Aristotle, beginning, middle, and end. That's a story. And then people break it up into like Save the Cat, 15 beats. And then within each scene, beats. So, I mean, you can really scientifically break it down to, what I got to do. He's got to deny the call to action,
the call to adventure,
all this kind of stuff. I'm a reluctant whatever, but you can see a lot of times in when you watch something, or watch a movie or whatever, that hey, this is following exactly the formula for hero's journey. These are the beats. Oh yeah, I recognize these, and yet the thing doesn't work. It's boring. It doesn't, it's like predictable. It's like unnatural. It's unauthentic. Doesn't work. So, I mean, you can have all these things. So basically what you want to do as a writer is you got to know it, and then once you know it, it's kind of like anything, sports. Yeah, I know I got to throw my pass. I know I've got to throw my jab. I know I've got to, square up and hit my 3-point shot and blah, blah, blah. But then you got to do it. And it's got to be unconscious. So once you've assimilated and absorbed and it's become part of your thinking process, then you can create it. So, and then afterwards you can go look at it and go, maybe you got to move this a little bit this way or that way, or change. It's got to happen. Something got to happen here. It feels a little bit slushy. Feels a little bit soft, a little bit dead. You got to do something. So that's where it goes in the rewriting. Is where really the work goes in.
Okay.
I got an idea. And a lot of people say, your pitch and your log line, that's the most important thing, but you still got to execute it.
Right. So how different is it's a 6-issue series. Now it's into a graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a continuation, or is this a standalone? It's still only 6 issues. You looking at issue 7 now, or?
I have an idea for, and I started it actually, but because of the experience of Dog Eaters, which was grueling. I mean, look, it's 2022. This thing started in we started doing it. The award is like late 2006. So 2007, we're getting the pieces together. 2008, we really start. Right. And basically, it took a while. It's like a lot of times people say, I'm gonna, if you contract like with a publisher like Antarctic Press, which actually Dog Eaters has come out under like 5 different imprints. This is like the 5th or 6th one, including digital. Antarctic Press, they put out all 6 issues. Antarctic, Press. Yeah. And looking at their contract, it's like if you fail to come out, this is if you're doing it at, you're trying to make deadlines like every month or every 2 months or whatever it is, and it's like if you fail to do that, you're penalized, of course. If you don't come up with your goods. So it's like this was already done, so it's like boom. I don't have to worry about time, being under stress. That kind of, that kind of stress is killer, man. That causes people to die, really.
Yeah. And so these came out, and do you have? So just talk to us a bit about that. Originally, it was a screenplay. How different is the graphic novel compared to the original screenplay that you won the award?
The screenplay is much deeper. Yeah. Okay. So there's more plot lines, mostly relationship related. So there's stuff going on because it's a family situation. Each one has their own. There's Lamont, black dog. There's Rebecca, black dog. There's Tracy, and there's Tommy, and it's a four-member family. The survival rate for children is low, of course, because of medical limitations. So there's only a family of 4. She might have had 9 kids, who knows, right? Still looks good though.
And so how much? So was it that conscious decision of you to feel like you had to cut things out and to make it a 6-issue series?
Otherwise, it's not going to fit.
Right.
It's not going to fit. Yeah, and the limitation was 6 issues, and that's how we did it. So 6 issues and a graphic novel. Still a very full story,
Right. So why was it supposed to fit within a 6-issue series? That was just because of the contract you had with that?
That's what those were the conditions. And so somehow we just kept it that way. And we had the adaptation, which was done quite quickly actually by Sean J. Jordan, who was a employee at the time. I'm not sure he got paid either, but he was very helpful. I had never done a comic script before, and so he did an adaptation. I went in and edited it like crazy, but he put it together. He the format and all that kind of thing. Now you can there are templates for that. I just did a script for the former senior artist for Rockstar Games,
Okay.
Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
And I had won a lot of my screenplays have won awards and everything, and nothing produced, but won awards. So one of the awards was I have right on final draft, but Movie Magic screenwriter, and that has a template for what is that one? They have 3 templates, and one of them is it's expressly for Dark Horse.
Okay.
So, and I just wrote it. Hey, here's a template, and so I wrote it. I just finished it last week, actually.
Oh wow.
Stephen Bliss is the former senior artist for Rockstar Games and Grand Theft Auto. He did the artwork for that, what the characters are based on. And this project is like an NFT kind of project. So he's got like all these characters, got hundreds of characters actually in many different iterations. He's a great artist. You can check that out at Fear City. It's called fearcity.io. And
Okay.
yeah, he's really good. I think he's getting another artist to do it. But I just finished that, and it was like, when you have this template, it's pretty easy to write a script.
So how different is it to write a script for a screenplay as compared to a comic? The
movie has to be much more, well, especially in this case, when I'm writing for somebody else who has this database of characters and character biographies. You don't need to put as much detail into it. Like a movie, especially a spec screenplay for TV or movies, interior, night, he's sitting in the bathroom,
right,
on the toilet, everything,
right.
He looks up, he's, this kind of thing. A bullet comes by, all this stuff. Whereas the comic can be much more not as detailed.
Right.
And the artist will do pencils, and then you'll feedback on that.
So talk to us a bit, as you say, it's like you get the artist for Dog Eaters, and you kind of decided to say, I'm just going to go alone on this. No one's getting paid, so I'm just going to become the kind of the project manager for this.
Producer.
The producer for this. Yes. How did that role change for you in the sense of your responsibilities?
Well, you just got to pay the artist. I have experience with production anyways.
Okay.
Independent film. I directed music videos. I produced music videos. So it's just a matter of getting the pieces, making sure that everybody has you're communicating, you're paying.
And you mentioned you did this back in 2008. If you
started
it in 2008, from what you know now in 2022, as of this recording, is there anything you would have done differently than what you did when you started in 2008?
I think it came out pretty well. Of course, when you look at projects, you look back at projects, there's always something you can do better. So there's that, and then you try to take that to the next project. There's always something. You're never satisfied.
What advice would you give a comic creator today that you wished somebody told you when you first started doing this project back in 2008?
It all has to do with money, for sure. Make sure you're going to fund it. If you don't have enough funding to finish it, you're hoping to finish it. I mean, it's all, it's all part of the journey. So even if you don't finish it, it's part of the journey. So you have to look at it that way. Success, failure, whatever. It's all part of your experience. So, learn as much as possible while you're doing something. Try to stay in the moment. Try to maintain momentum. Don't be too hasty. Don't be too impatient. It's it's going to be a lasting document of whatever your efforts. So make it something that you're not too embarrassed about, if possible. Even if it is embarrassing, try to learn from it. You have to think about what is life anyways. It's like, do you get to the end and, whatever. It's, if you think that it's just a YOLO situation, and, then maybe your motivations and your intentions are totally different than just like feeling like I got to learn as much as I can in this lifetime, and whatever goes passes, after death, which always happens to the other guy. We never die. It's always the other guy. Once what do you take? You obviously, you're not going to take specific experiences, but there will be a certain momentum of spirit, maybe. If you think that way, then that's what you do. If you just think you're going to die and you're dead, well, whatever.
So, how important is it to find a good artist for your work?
It's absolutely imperative that you have a good artist. Although you can have a great story, and like manga shows that as long as you can propel a story through, some of it's just a few lines. Black and white, just a few lines. Very, very effective in terms of story. And I mean, it doesn't have to be Michelangelo every panel.
Right.
It really is about the story. It's always about narrative, anyways. No matter what field you're in, from business, politics, obviously anything to do with story, like entertainment, anything, even narratives within narratives and overall narratives. Like a musician. Oh, he came from, his parents were addicts and he learned how to do beats on the street, and now he's better than the other guy. So these narratives are really important, and so regardless of how it's rendered, you have to have the story.
Right. And so, what about that? Finding an editor for your script. How important is an editor?
I edited myself, so all depends on where you are as a writer. Some writers do need outside editors, and you always get, you'll be getting feedback if you're working in a collaborative environment. People are giving you feedback. With this last one with Fear City, I was just working with Steven, so we're bouncing ideas. He has a basic idea for a story. I wrote it, and he came back with a couple of tweaks, and that was it. So it can be as one, like an advisor, an analyst you can use just to get your story right. Yeah. And I guess you would call that editing or revising or rewriting.
Right.
So those are it all depends on how good a writer you are, really.
Right. And so, have you been approached also for any, we kind of mentioned earlier, about any more stories that happen in the dog eater world? Is there any, has that been an approach to you, say, hey, can we talk about what happens in other parts of the world during this? Or do you have any other ideas? Or
nobody's put together a proposal saying, we'd like you to do this and here's the money. So, it's only gone so far. So, I'm working on other story ideas. The story that I really want to do, that I feel that is really right for these times. Obviously, Dog Eaters is right for 175 years after the die-off.
Yeah.
But this story here, I think, would be really appropriate for what's happening now. It's called. He's also a first place winner in screenplay, and it's gotten like 9 finalists or something like that. It's called Sacred Profanity, and it's in a dystopian near future in a balkanized America where everything is, it's states, can be regions like southeast, southwest. A journalist investigating the assassination of a charismatic spiritual teacher must elude the death squads of both the UN peacekeepers and the divine faith, which is the dominant organized religion, to find and reveal the truth and witness the resurrection.
So yeah, with Sacred Profanity, you can get it at storypros.com, and this is the one that you did?
Yeah, it's and Lance Lucero, who is also a member of the Anyone World, has adapted this, scripted it.
Okay.
On my screenplay. So yeah, there's this right here, and I would like to see, when you do something from a screenplay that goes to a graphic novel, it's like storyboard in a way, very much so. I mean, you can visualize it. Reading has become kind of a neglected art, I would say, a neglected tool, a neglected necessity. For people, everybody's very visual. It's got to be moving. It's got, even Instagram is like photos. Too boring. It's got to be a reel, this kind of thing. It's like, I can't imagine what it is unless it's right in front of me moving on a screen. It's not real unless that happens. So when you take it to the next level, it's like, okay, from words to pictures, and then going from panel to panel, I can see what's happening in between the panels,
Right.
So that makes it a more, this I would really love to do as a live action movie.
What advice would you give somebody who is wanting to adapt a screenplay into a comic format?
Well, like I said, beginning, middle, and end. So depending on how long your series is going to be, you can divide it up into that and just start outline it. Another thing that, is a structure thing. Structure is very important in that there are rules, so to speak. And but the main rule, like I said, Aristotle, beginning, middle, and end. If you don't have a beginning, middle, and end, you don't have a story. So you break it up like that, and then you find the things that you want to keep that are important, the main elements, and you just fill it in. Yeah.
So you say, for instance, somebody wants to learn how to write a comic script, or say somebody that wants to learn how to write a screenplay. One way to practicing would be, say, take a screenplay that exists from a movie from the 1920s that you can access, and take that screenplay and adapt it to a comic book script to learn how to write comic scripts. Or would you recommend not doing that at all? Like, how would you teach someone how to write?
Definitely writing. You got to write. So whatever you do and however way you do it, write. And then you build these muscles, putting sentences together, putting scenes together, putting acts together. You got to write. So whatever avenue you take, write.
Right.
You can't do it by just wishing. There are no shortcuts. You got to do it. I mean, really. And there's lots of books. So read.
And what would be your advice for people that want to learn more about writing scripts? Would you recommend maybe take a class in it, or watch videos, join a group, like an online group to do it?
All of those things. You need to have a passion for it. You need to have an interest in it. You need to be self-motivated. Otherwise, there's so many people. The competition is amazing. in a bad way.
Right.
There's so many. When I first started, it was like, oh, these scripts that I look back at now were like, they're not great and they're winning prizes. No, seriously. And then, pre-subprime, we're talking like before 2007, 2008, all this money is coming in, fake money, but it still counts apparently. And, it just became very attractive to try to be a writer, a Hollywood writer. Oh, it looks easy. I watch movies, I can do it, that kind of thing. Right. So, but really, there's a lot of great writing, and not a lot of, and only a certain amount gets, chosen. There's only a certain amount, even though you have all this cable and you have all this streaming and all this self-publishing, all this kind of stuff. Now it's even harder to break through the clutter because there's so much of it. And it's all this, same with music, same with movies. You have an iPhone, you can make a movie, So the tools are all there. It's just a matter of, and I think that it's a lot about marketing and promotion. So social media has taken on a huge impact in what people look at, what is available. It's amazing that we see so many bad things, and also the nepotism, the connections and the nepotism in the entertainment world. There are so many, second generation, third generation actors, writers, directors. They have opportunities that a normal person will never have. I mean, it's generational, so it's legacy. It's like being in the nobility in feudal times.
Right.
If you're gonna be the king, you got to kill the king or be his brother and kill him. That kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
It's tough. It's super tough. And so that's why you can't really, I mean, when somebody that, let's look at the, what's that actress's name that's in Euphoria or something Sweeney or something like that. She talks about this. Her parents took her to Hollywood when she was 13 or something. She struggled, and because she's got great chest, and she shows it. She's well known, famous, but she talks about that. It's like the connections that so many people in entertainment have now. It's so amazing. And you have these, it's just like nobility. You have them marrying each other. You have two beautiful people marrying each other and producing another beautiful person. What? And growing up in the environment of what? And you're coming in from, North Overshoe, Vermont.
Yeah.
And you don't have a chance. You end up in the gutter. Homeless, whatever. So, I mean, not easy. So getting back to, advice is like, you just got to push through, complete projects, and it's a journey. So if you focus on a goal being like, I want to be famous and I want to make a lot of money, it's probably not going to happen.
But like you said, doing it if you're passionate about it, follow your passion.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you can do, really, and try to make a living somehow.
Right.
That's probably what you got to do first.
So you mentioned earlier, you kind of mentioned Save the Cat. You mentioned some of these other things like Aristotle. If we have a lot of writers that listen and watch the program, what if you got to pick, like 3 books that you have to read, or 3 places?
3 books, Barney.
Well, the 3, but like, what would be your first recommendation to say? I want to learn how to write. what would be an instructional, the first place you would recommend people
I
to
think
go to?
Save the Cat is kind of like the Bible right now, or it
Right.
was a few years back. There's he's dead actually. The guy, he died.
Oh wow.
But there's also Robert McKee. I mean, that is very technical, and I don't think you don't want to start there. That is like ridiculous. It's like Greek or something. And then you have a lot of other screenwriting, formatting. You don't have to worry about formatting anymore. It all comes in software. There's stuff online. There's coaches online, tons of analysts, coaches, whatever. So if you have something, you can pay $100, $200, $300, send it, get feedback on it. It's like taking a course in a way. It's one-to-one. There's so many ways. You just have to have it. If you have an interest in it, you'll find a way. So yeah, and then there's just go to Amazon and screenwriting books, pick 3 and read them. There's also books on acting and directing, which are helpful as well. It's like, he was sad. That's not a direction. You don't use adjectives to direct. Use verbs. So all these kind of little things that are very helpful. Show don't tell, but but sometimes you got to tell. All these things, whatever's appropriate to the story. So it's a very deep and wide art, writing. I would say that it's time and space, right? It's 4-dimensional. Like if you're doing painting, it's 2-dimensional, or if it's got impasto, it's 3-dimensional, or sculpture. These are music also too, evolves over time, right? So this is something that is, but with music, even, it's like there's only a certain amount of notes. There's only a certain amount of chords in a way. Yeah. But writing is like, you can do so much with it. And that's the excitement of it, and challenge and difficulty, of writing.
Is there any genre of writing that you want to explore more as a writer?
Well, I'm kind of interested in social issues, dynamic of what happens when oil and water. You've got this dynamic where right now where people just don't hear what other people are saying, or they don't acknowledge it. Even some of their heroes, whatever, as soon as they say something, the thing is that you can learn something about every situation and not be so hostile, So that's the problem we have now, and that's the kind of things that I'm building. I'm building something right now to and I want to put into a story form. So things like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
so
you also have to keep interest. So it's got to have some. It's got to have some drama to it. It's got to have some.
You want people to turn the page.
Which it will have drama, of course. It's the very nature of the issues and the themes. So, yeah.
Well, good. So Malcolm, if people want to learn more about your work, where would be the best place they could go to?
Well, the graphic novel is a good place to start because I talk in detail about the process that it took to create and to produce and to get it out there in the forward and also the afterward. I talk about the process and, sort of the realities of how this thing came to be made. And from that, that kind of informs what, the realities of what it is.
Okay.
Right. I would start there.
All right. And if people want to see any of your other writings or anything, is there a place that they could go to?
Well, I'm not sure when Thumper is what it's called is coming out, but it's that's The Fear City by Stephen Bliss, his universe. It's kind of like It's kind of like Joker, Sin City combination, Mask even.
Cool.
It's the artwork is terrifying, very dark. It's just one issue. I don't know. He's planning a 6-issue series. I'm not sure how involved I'll be in the next set. He was initially planning to write it himself, but because of NFT is an interesting situation because they're like stockholders in a way in the property, and so they're like, hey, when's it coming out? What's going on? They're very impatient. All I know is this thing, crypto.
Well, cool. So listen, Malcolm, I gotta say, this has been a great conversation, and I really look forward to checking out more of the Dog Eaters.
Check it out, man. Check it out.
Yeah.
If you're interested in the future of the world, absolutely.
Yeah. Perfect, Malcolm. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome, and thank you.